Emily Windsnap and the Monster from the Deep, Chapter 5. Dad! He didn't reply, just kept on staring out to sea. We'd spent half the day swimming around the coast, trying to keep out of sight and trying to figure out what to do next. We stopped to rest at a large rocky bay on the east side of the island, just a little farther down from our bay. I swam over to join him next to a huge boulder at the edge of the bay. Dad, I said again. I'm thinking, he said, without turning around. Just give me a minute. I counted to 10. What are we going to do? He shook his head. I don't know, Em. I just don't know. I looked out to sea with him. The water lapped gently into the cove behind us. Daylight was starting to fade. I stared out at the horizon. So much ocean, stretching for miles and miles and miles. Forever, it seemed. Nothing but water. And the monster, somewhere. A cold shiver rattled through my body. The water lay still, but how long till it would seethe with the kraken's rage? The stillness was almost worse, knowing it was out there, waiting. Something flickered on the horizon, a brief flash of light. I jerked upright and peered so hard my eyes watered. There it was again. Dad! Emily, will you leave me alone? I've told you, give me 5 minutes. I need to think. I shook his arm. Look! I pointed out to the horizon. Dad followed the line of my finger. Mothering mussels, he breathed, squinting into the distance. His words came out like a whistle. What's that doing there? What is it? Look, red, then green. Dad turned to me. It's a ship, Emily. A ship had gotten in. The kraken had already pierced the triangle's border. It's not coming any closer, is it? I asked with a gulp. What if it was? One way or another, that would spell disaster. Either the kraken would destroy the ship, or the ship would discover us. Either way, it was completely unthinkable. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't mean it won't, though. Dad pushed off from the rock and started to swim away. Come on. Where are we going? We'll have to say something. Say something. My words jammed up my throat. I swallowed hard. Who to? I don't know. Archie, I guess. Dad took hold of my hand. Emily, there's a ship coming toward the island. The others need to know that the kraken's gotten out. No! Dad, they'll want to know everything. They'll make you tell them it was all my fault. Love, the monster could attack that ship, or the ship could discover us here. That'll be the end of us all. You heard what Neptune said. We can't stay here if the secret gets out. Can't you just see it? Hordes of tourists swarming the place. They'll turn us into a zoo or something. He turned to swim away. A zoo? My old fears of discovery resurfaced in a wave of anguish. That was one of my nightmares I used to have in Brightport. What had I done? There must be something we can do, I said, swimming hard to keep up. This is the only thing. Dad's voice was firm. He didn't speak again. The water soon grew warmer as we reached the shallow sand, rippling like tire tracks across the seafloor. Dad wouldn't look at me. You go along home. Mom will be worried. What about you? I'm going to see if I can find Archie. I didn't move. It'll be all right, he said with a tight smile. Then he turned and swam toward the end of the bay, taking my last shreds of hope with him. Mom threw her arms around me the second I arrived back at the Fortuna. Emily, I've been worried sick. Where have you been? With Dad. I felt claustrophobic in the caves, and we went exploring. My cheeks burned. I hate lying to Mom. Mary P., you really should listen to me. I told you she was safe, Millie said, pouring some herbal tea from a pot and settling down on the big sofa. Millie saw a ship, Mom said. She saw it? I burst out. Mom looked at me quizzically. When she did Neptune's reading, she had a vision of a ship. What ship did you think I meant? Oh, no, nothing. Yes, that's what I thought you meant, I blustered. Great move, Emily. Just give the game away to everyone. I thought you said something about gold. I tried to keep my voice even. Yes, well, you can't be expected to get everything right all the time. Millie replied, sniffling as she picked up a magazine. So what did Neptune say about the vision? I asked, holding my breath. Millie flipped the pages. Not everyone appreciates my gift. He told her he'd throw her off the island if she wasted any more of his time with her hocus pocus, said Mom, smiling. How could she smile? I could hardly speak. I had to get away from here. I'm going to my room, I said. Before they had a chance to argue, I'd gone through the back of the ship and closed my door behind me. Shaking, I sat down on my bed and looked around. Like all the others, the room had a trap door that led to the floor below, to the sea. I'd hardly used it yet. The one in the living room was open all the time, and it was bigger. I crept over to the trap door next to my bed and opened it. Maybe. Emily. Mom was at my door. I jumped away from the trap door. I was just looking at the fish, I said quickly. Are you all right? Mom stepped into the room and came over to me. She lifted a strand of hair off my face, stroking it behind my ear. If there's anything you want to talk about. There isn't, I said, trying to make myself smile. I imagine I looked like a scared rabbit with a twitch. A while ago I could talk to Mom about anything, and didn't know how to relate to Dad at all. Funny how things had changed. If funny was the right word, which it wasn't. I'm fine, honestly, I said. Just a little tired. I stretched my mouth into a yawn. Look, see, I think I'll have a nap. Mom stared at me quizzically for a moment before shrugging. Well, we'll be next door if you need anything. She kissed my forehead and left. I waited 5 minutes. She didn't come back. Okay, this was it. I knew what I was going to do. I had to get to the ship, make it change its course or something. Just stop it from causing disaster to everyone on board, and probably all of us on the island too. I didn't have a clue how I was going to do it. I just knew I had to try. I eased myself through the hole, then dangling over the side, I lowered myself down as gently as I could and let go. I dropped with a splash. Had they heard? I held my breath and waited. Nothing. I waited a little longer, to make sure my tail had fully formed. When the tingling and numbness had completely gone, I ducked under, swam through the big open porthole, and headed toward the ship. It was almost like the old days, swimming out to sea under a sky gradually filling up with stars. A stripped butterfly fish raced along beside me before slipping away into the darkness and disappearing under a rock. Shoals of silver bar-jacks hovered nearby, shining like pins in the darkness. Purple fans waved with the current, caressing me as I sailed over them. It was nothing like the old days. In the old days, I was swimming out to meet my best friend. Now I didn't even know if I still had one. Shauna would have been by my side on an adventure like this. My chest hurt as I pushed myself to swim harder, swim away from the painful thoughts. The water grew colder and darker. I picked my way out toward the ship, praying there was no current around this side of the island. After a while, I stopped to scan the horizon. 2 dim lights facing me. It was a long way out, but definitely inside the triangle. I couldn't even see the island anymore, just blackness, except, what was that? Something flashed through the water. A boat? I held my breath while I watched. Nothing. It must have been just the moon's reflection. I swam on toward the ship. I had to stop it from finding us, get away from the island. I had to buy some time. Eventually I was close enough to study it, a cruise liner with 3 levels of portholes and balconies, all lit up with lamps. The sides rose steeply out of the water. I swam all around it, looking for a way in. There was a rope ladder hanging down at the back. I tried to make a grab for it, but missed by inches. I heaved and jumped in the water. No good. It was just out of reach. I swam around again, looking for something else, and right at the front I found it, the anchor. Gripping the chains, I pulled myself out of the water. My tail dangled and flapped in the sea. Panting and gritting my teeth, I managed to inch my way up. Eventually I had done it. I clung onto the chain like a koala, my body clear of the water. Within moments I got the tingling sensation I knew so well. My legs had come back. I hooked my feet into the loops, then slowly, carefully climbed up to the ship's deck. Hauling myself over the metal rail, I landed heavily on the deck. A quick look around. No one. Just me and the darkness and a row of deck chairs. I dried myself on a towel someone had left on one of them and pulled on the shorts I'd brought with me. Then I went to look for some signs of life. It didn't take long. Halfway down the side of the ship, I found some stairs and a door that led inside. There were sounds. Somewhere near. I followed the noise, almost sniffling my way toward it. Music. Laughter. Soon I came out of the narrow corridor into an open space with a few people dotted around. I tried to saunter in casually as though I belonged there, even though I knew I'd be spotted in a second. But I wasn't. Some kids were playing in a tiny arcade on one side. On the other, a couple of men were drinking at a small bar. A man and woman behind the bar laughed together. No one even looked up. A flight of stairs led up toward where the real noise was coming from. Okay, you can do it. I took a deep breath, twirled my hair a few times, nibbled on my thumbnails, and went upstairs. It wasn't till I saw all the food that I realized I was starving. I'd hardly eaten all day. I grabbed a paper plate and joined the line behind a girl who looked about my age. Maybe she'd know something. "It's great, this vacation, isn't it?" I said as we shuffled along the food table, shoving tiny sausages and crackers and chips onto our plates. The girl replied through a pizza slice. "Wonder how long before we shove off," I said casually. She swallowed her bite of pizza. "My mom says we're not even supposed to be here. She thinks we've gone off course. Doesn't matter, though, if we see it." "See it?" "Yeah, that's what I thought," I said, trying to stay calm. I popped a mini sausage into my mouth. "So has anyone seen it yet?" The girl put her plate down. "Don't you know?" "Oh, I forgot. Remind me." "That's why we're here. Mom says more than half the passengers canceled at the last minute. That's how we got our places. I bet Carefree Cruises is totally fed up with that captain." "What was she going on about?" "Yeah, I bet," I said seriously. "What did he do again?" I asked quickly, turning away to grab another handful of chips. "How can you not know? He saw Triggy, of course. First sighting in absolutely years." A chip got stuck halfway down my throat. "Triggy?" I asked, swallowing hard. "Don't tell me you haven't heard of Triggy." I tried a light-hearted shrug and a frown. "Triggy, the triangle monster. I've always believed in it. Mom said it was just a silly fairy tale, but now she's not so sure. I hope we see it, don't you?" I couldn't reply. I couldn't do anything. I tried. I opened my mouth, even moved my lips a little, I think, but nothing came out. Triggy. It sounded like a cartoon character. She had no idea. I thought of the slimy tentacles racing down the tunnel toward me, the suckers all along it, grabbing at the walls, the way it extended out, the hairy tapered end touching me, the bones. Now these people were hunting it down? Which either meant it wouldn't be long before they found us, or they'd be its next victims. "I've got to go now," I said eventually. I staggered away from the food table. "See you in the morning," she called before going back to the table. "Yeah, whatever." I stumbled back down the stairs. At the bottom, I took a turn that I thought led back to the corridor I'd come down earlier, but I emerged into another open space. I was about to turn back when I noticed a shop just ahead of me. It was closed now, but there was a poster in the window. I went over to take a closer look. It was the front page of a newspaper, the Nulando Times. "Brave Captain Tells of Horror at Sea," the headline screamed across the top of the page. I read on. "The old myth of Triggy, the triangle monster, rose up again today when Captain Jimmy Oldswaite was rescued from stormy seas by a local fisherman. Captain Oldswaite lost his boat when it was attacked by what he described as a monster beyond imagining, the size of a dinosaur, and a dozen tentacles that wrapped around the boat. His story has horrified and delighted tourists in equal measure. Katie Hartnett was among those setting sail today with Carefree Cruises. It's so exciting," she told the New Londo Times. "My parents used to tell me stories about the triangle monster when I was little, but we never thought it might exist for real. Others have canceled in droves. Retiree Harold Winters was among them. We wanted a peaceful trip, not the fright of our lives," he said. "The captain's sighting has not been confirmed. The Coast Guard is warning that it could be a case of delirium brought on by his traumatic capsize and rescue. 3 others were believed to be on board the boat with the captain. Neither they nor the boat have yet been recovered. The boat was owned by a company called Mermaid Tours." I stumbled away from the shop. I was in one of those nightmares where you'd stuck somewhere trying every exit, but there's no way out, and every step takes you deeper into the horror. It had happened already. The monster had attacked a ship, all because of me. My head swirled with nausea and panic. I found myself out on the deck again. I leaned over the railing and my stomach heaved. My mouth tasted like iron. I looked down at the sea, deep navy in the darkness. Little bright flecks sparkled white as the water lapped and splashed against the ship. There was another boat down there. I could just make out of its shape. A small yacht. It looked as if it was coming toward us. Maybe they were checking to see if their lifeboats were working or something. Well, they'd be needing them soon, unless I could come up with a miracle. I had to do something. I couldn't just stand here staring at the sea. Then it came to me. I ran up steps, down ladders, along corridors, banged on the doors, called through open windows, "Triggy! The monster!" People emerged from their rooms. Dressing gowns were pulled around bare bellies and boxer shorts. Women came out of their cabins in silk nighties. Kids in twisted-up pajamas. "Triggy!" I shouted at everyone I saw. "The monster! I've seen it!" "Where?" Open-mouthed gasp. Over there, I pointed away from the island. I pointed and pointed. Tell everyone. Tell the crew. I ran on as everyone I spoke to gathered along one side of the boat, all gazing out to sea, desperate for a sighting of something I wished with all my heart I would never see again. I had to find the captain. I ran on, down more corridors, until I barged slap-bang into someone. Hey, what's all this? It was a woman in a uniform. She grabbed hold of my elbows, holding me at arm's length. I need to find the captain, I gasped. I've seen the monster. The woman frowned. Yes, dear, I'm sure you have. Now come on, why don't you? I have, I bursted out. I can prove it. It's... I gulped. The memory of it took the breath out of me for a second. I started again. It's enormous, and it's got tentacles. We've all seen the papers, sweetheart, the woman said, smiling. Now if you want to excuse to visit the captain, you can just say so. He's always happy for you kids to have a quick look around the cabin. Bingo. Okay. The woman gently shook her head as she pointed toward some stairs. It's up there. Turn right at the top, straight on to the end, and it's through the door ahead of you. But knock first. He doesn't take kindly to being barged in on. Thanks. I took the stairs 3 at a time. I bashed on the door. Come on, come on. No one answered. Come on. No time for politeness. I tried the door. It swung open. I need to talk to the captain, I said breathlessly as I burst into the room. 2 men were sitting in front of a load of dials drinking coffee. One of them swiveled around. Now, hang on. What's the... Are you the captain? I certainly am, he said, and you can't just... I've seen the sea monster. The captain leaned forward in his seat. The sea monster? I nodded. His face relaxed into a slight smile. Now listen, you want me to tell you something about this sea monster? He asked. I swallowed and nodded again. He lowered his voice. It doesn't exist. I held his eyes. It does. I've seen it. The captain leaned back in his seat. Okay, let's have it then. Big thing with tentacles, was it? Yes, that's exactly what it was. Right, he was smiling, laughing at me. I had to convince him. It's enormous. Anything else? The captain asked in a bored voice. The tentacles, they're tapered at the end. He turned back to his tea. I racked my brain. What else? What else? And hairy, and they've got huge, great suckers all along them, I blurted. The captain put his cup down. They what? He asked, his face suddenly hard and focused on mine. And they're green and gray underneath and warty. My voice trailed away as I remembered the sight of it. My teeth chattered. The captain turned to the other man. That's exactly what my friend at the Coast Guard said. Sir, the newspaper report... The captain shook his head. Those things weren't in there. Come on, man. Face the facts. You saw the dials. And you know we've been stuck here spinning on the spot like a child's top. Yes, but you said yourself that if we made a mammoth effort, we could get out of it. Exactly, and we need to do that now. There's something going on. It's time we faced up to it. He moved his chair closer to mine and leaned toward me. Okay, then, he said. You'd better tell me exactly where you saw the sea monster. I'd done it. The ship had changed direction and we were heading directly away from the island. I'd sneaked along the empty deck. Every single person on the ship must have been crowded on the other side, peering into the darkness for a sight of something they thought would make their vacation. I thought of its flailing tentacles, the floor littered with bones, and I shivered. If only they knew. I hoped for their sake that they never would. I had to get back to the island. Maybe I could confess after all if I told Neptune what I'd done here. But how'd I stopped a whole cruise ship full of people discovering us? He might even forgive me. I checked around one final time to make sure no one else would see me. Then I slipped back into the water. Moments later, the familiar warm feeling spread through my legs as they turned back into my tail. It shone bright into the moonlight. Fish around me seemed to be dancing. I could make out their shapes in the darkness. They must have been happy for me. Maybe it was a sign. Everything was going to be all right. I swam along, lost in my hopes that I could somehow make up for everything that had happened over the last couple of weeks. Perhaps Shauna and I would be best friends again, and the island would be safe. The Kraken might even go away, and our lives in our new home could really start. Emily! I started, and I looked back, twisting around in the water. 2 people were leaning out over a balcony on the cruise ship, waving frantically. Why weren't they on the other side with everyone else? I edged back toward the boat. That's when I saw who it was. Mom! Thin and wiry with wild hair waving her arms, someone was with her, larger than life in a black cape. Millie! What the heck were... Emily! Mom screamed again. I swam closer to the ship, but it was picking up speed. I could hardly keep up. Watch the propellers, Mom screeched. Don't come too close. Millie had sunk into a deck chair next to her, her head in her hands. A small yacht was moored on a buoy, near where the ship had been only moments ago. The one I'd seen coming toward us. I recognized it now. It was our old boat. They'd followed me. Mom, what are you doing there? We came to find you, but you just jumped off. It was Millie's idea, the vision, the boat. She'd seen you on it. What? You never told me that. Millie got up and stumbled across to clutch onto the railing. I kept it to myself, she wailed. I thought it would have sounded crazy. I've heard what people say about me. She leaned out over the railing. I'm sorry, Emily. I was too busy worrying about my reputation. We didn't think they'd get going again tonight, Mom called. Oh no, my fault again. I'd made things worse again. The ship was only on the move because of me, and now it was moving faster and faster away, and taking my mom with it. Mom! I tried to keep up. She was shouting something, but I couldn't hear her anymore. I could hardly even see her as the ship picked up speed. Mom! I yelled uselessly into the darkness. As the ship slipped away, I let the current carry me along. No energy left. I drifted away from the ship, from the island, from everything that mattered. Tears streamed down my face as I howled in the darkness. And then, noise, clattering, shuffling. What was happening? I mopped my cheeks with my palms. I've got caught in what? Seaweed? I flapped and scratched at it. Please, not the monster. I looked around me. A net. I was trapped in a net. A man was holding it, pulling at a piece of rope, dragging me through the water, propelling himself along with flippers. Flapping my tail, I tried to push away, but he was too strong. I struggled and fought, biting at the net, pulling at it with my fingers, cutting my hands, scraping myself all over. It was like wire. There was no way I could get through it. I scratched and screamed as he drew me through the sea. Soon the water grew warmer and shallower. We were at a tiny island, a little sandy bay with a few palm trees, a small boat moored to a pole, and a makeshift lantern propped on the beach. The man tied my net to the pole. He pushed his mask and snorkel onto the top of his head. I couldn't make out his face properly in the shadowy light. I'm not going to hurt you, he said, panting from swimming so hard. Trust me. I didn't say anything. Do you speak English? He asked in a very loud voice. I ignored him. Stay here, he said, as though I had a choice. He disappeared at the beach as I scraped and scratched at the net, trying to get out. Moments later, he was back with someone. Dad, you are completely obsessed, a girl's voice was saying. It's the middle of the night. The sound sounded familiar, but it couldn't be. I said, didn't I? The man replied as they came closer. I told you. I told you. Now do you believe me? He pointed in my direction. The other person waded toward me and peered at me in the darkness. As she came closer, I could just make out her face from the lantern's light. It was, I gasped and jerked backward against the net, my mouth stupidly open. It couldn't be. How? It was someone I knew well, someone I thought I would never, ever have to see again. Mandy's story. Dad caught a fish at last. Hallelujah. He's screaming and yelling at me to come and see it. You'd think no one had ever caught a fish in the sea before. But it's not a fish. He got someone with him. I told you, he's yelling. I said I'd catch a mermaid, didn't I? Do you believe me now? I get closer and I notice a tail. No, it can't be. He's actually caught a mermaid. It turns around. I see its face, its mousy hair, skinny little arms. It can't be. It's impossible. But it is. It is. I grab the lamp and bring it closer as I stare at her. It's Emily Windsnap. And then I remember everything. The pool, the swimming lessons. She came to us once before she left, showing off as usual. She had a tail. She swam in front of us, all swirling it around, grinning at me as if to say she'd won. It wasn't enough for her that everyone thought she was so wonderful. Julia, the swimming instructor, they all liked her more than they liked me. All thought she was better than me. She had to rub it in, didn't she? Had to prove they were right. As if I didn't already know it. How could I have forgotten? There was something afterward. They gave us donuts. That was when it all faded. The donuts. Had they drugged us or something? And what the heck is she doing here? Our eyes meet. She's as shocked as I am. Mandy, she says. I pull myself together quickly. Oh, hi, Emily. I say, nice and calm. I sniff and turn to Dad. Why are you bothering with her, Dad? Dad pulls off his mask and snorkel. What are you talking about, Mandy? It's a mermaid. Dad, have you actually looked at her face? He gawks at me for a second before turning to Emily and then back to me. I can almost see the realization crawling into his mind. He points at Emily. But that looks like... Yeah, Dad, I say, trying to sound bored, or at least as if I've got a clue what's going on here. It's Emily Windsnap. But how? But she's a... His voice trails away. He looks at her again, then at me. Don't be stupid, Mandy, he says suddenly. Of course it's not Emily Windsnap. It just looks a little like her. This is a mermaid. Mom joins us on the beach. What's the fuss, Jack? Dad runs towards her, ignoring me and ignoring reality, it seems. No time now, Maureen, he says. We need to get ready. Where's all our stuff? What stuff? Everything we need. Get it in the boat. We're off as soon as it's light. Off? I follow Dad out of the water. What do you mean, off? Where are we going? Dad stops and turns back to me. We're going home, Mandy, with our mermaid. We're going to save the pier, just like I said. He runs over toward the boat. But it's broken, I say, following after him. We capsized, remember? I've been working day and night on this boat, he calls back. I think she's ready to sail again. Pack your things and then get some more sleep. First light of dawn and we're off. Mom? Her eyes are vacant. She looks as if she's already given up hope. I haven't got a clue what's going on, she says. What's that he got in the net? I leave her to find out for herself as I follow Dad to the boat. Maybe we can sort everything out. Maybe he's right. It's worth a try, I suppose. Anything's better than rotting on this stupid island for the rest of our lives, even if it does mean sailing home with Fish Girl. The boat seems to be just about holding up. It would be better if Dad had the slightest idea how to sail it, though. We're buffeting about all over the place. He keeps staring at the navigation dials, then yelling things at Mom, like, get over onto starboard, and we need to tack. Watch the boom, hard a lee. She yells things back, but her words are washed away by the wind and by the sea water spraying us on the back deck. Just as well. Judging by her expression, it's probably best if neither of us can hear what she's actually saying. Anyway, I'm busy with Emily. I've got to keep an eye on the net, make sure it doesn't come loose. Can't have her escaping. Comfy down there, are you? I call to her. She's being pulled along like a water skier. Enjoying your little trip? What are you going to do with me? She whimpers. She's scared. I swallow my guilt. Why shouldn't she suffer? Why shouldn't she understand how I feel most of the time? Would it hurt for someone to understand? Oh, didn't Dad tell you? We're taking you back to Brightport, I say. The boat swerves and surges, so I don't hear her reply, just a kind of yelp from inside the net. Yeah, we're going to put you on display, I continue when she bobs above the surface again, her hair plastered across her face with seawater. I smile down at her. Hey, maybe all of your school friends will come and visit. That'd be nice for you, wouldn't it? We were thinking maybe $5 a visit. What do you think? What about my mom? She's stranded on the ship. I've got to find her, my dad, and let me at least get a message to him. I want to. Part of me wants to shout and cry and ask why it has to be like this, but I can't. Show her my weakness and she can hurt me even more. Forget it. Yeah, right, I say. Mandy, I need you. Dad's calling. Back soon. I call down to Fish Girl. Don't go anywhere. Oh, sorry, I forgot. You can't. I stand up to see what Dad wants, but I don't need to ask. The boat has leveled out. All is calm. But just ahead of us is something I'd almost forgotten about. The darkness spreading like an oil slick in the morning light, pulling us in. Dad, what are we going to do? He shakes his head. I haven't got a clue, dear. We've got to get across it somehow. Mom's edging along the side deck to join us. Jack, are you crazy? Have you forgotten what happened last time? The last 2 weeks foraging for food like beggars after nearly drowning. And that poor captain. Have we? You? What choice do we have, Maureen? We can think about our choices as soon as we've gotten away from here. But I think, for one, am not going to gamble with my life when the odds look like that. She points to the sheet of water glistening like glass ahead of us. Well, I, for one, am not going to live on nuts and berries for the rest of my life, Dad yells, and I'm not going to go back and watch my home and my livelihood demolished either. So you'll kill us all then, will you? Mom screams. Mom! Dad! I try to get between them, but the boat suddenly lurches and I slip across the deck. We're starting to tilt. We're being drawn toward it again. Please, please don't fight. Neither of them is listening. They'd rather scream at each other than try to work out what to do. "Dad!" I yell, clutching the railing as the boat dips farther. I nearly fall over the side. Emily is down below in her stupid net. We're going to capsize again. I'm going to drown here, all because of her. I can't believe it. The boat lurches again. "I can help," a voice from down below. "What?" "I'll help you." I grab the railing as the boat leans over. Spray hits us on all sides as we skid through the water, soaking me. She looks up at me pitifully, her big brown eyes round and shiny. I can't bear it. I turn away. I bet she's only putting it on anyway. "And why would you do that?" I asked. "I don't want you to die," she says. I'm supposed to believe that, am I? "I've got enough on my conscience," she calls up. "I don't need that as well. You can keep me in the net. Just let the rope out. I'll pull you away." I glance over at Mom and Dad. They're not screaming at each other anymore. Mom's trying to make her way over to me. She's not even holding on to anything. "Mom, stay where you are. Let the rope out," Emily yells. "Do you want to be killed?" I glance at the rope. It's looped around and around over a hook. "Don't try to do anything clever, all right?" "Just do it," she shouts. "It'll be too late in a second." I lurch over the back of the boat. One last glance at the water ahead of us, then I unhook the rope. "I'm warning you," I shout as I throw it into the water. The coil lands with a splash, then nothing. Where's she gone? She disappeared. I scan the surface of the water. Where is she? She must be in there somewhere. I'm staring so hard at the water, it looks like it's changing color, getting darker. It is changing color. There's a shape in there, a huge gray outline of something very, very big, something we saw before and like idiots pretended to ourselves we hadn't. Without warning, it bursts through the surface. A piercing, screaming siren sound screeches into the sky as an olive green tentacle rises up, way up above us, then shears downward to wrap itself over the top of the boat like an arch. "No! Mandy!" Emily's yelling. "Where is she?" Did she know it was here? Did she somehow make this happen? I know it's a crazy thought, but maybe. I mean, she had the rope. She was in the water. She hates me. She could have done it. Just as I was starting to trust her, that'll teach me. The monster lifts the boat right out of the water, high up into the air. I can see the underside of its tentacle. It looks like a giant worm, extending and retracting, slithering and lumpy. Gasping and retching, I fall against the railing, clutching on for my life. With an almighty crash, it drops us back down onto the water, and the surface explodes. We're such fools. How could we let it happen again? She's done this to us. She made it happen. She tricked us somehow. The thing has tentacles all over us, sliming over the boat, roaming, searching for things to grab and latch onto. I'm slipping across the deck, water everywhere. It sucks the boat down, throws it around, tosses us one way and then the other. Any second now, we'll all be in the water. Should I pray? As if praying would help. The only thing giving me courage as the boat is thrown over, as I clutch the railings, hold my breath, and grab the lifeboat belt, is one single thought. I'll get you for this, fish girl. I will so get you for this. The end of chapter 5.